Hi there, welcome to this Google Data Studio tutorial. In this tutorial, we will learn everything we need to understand to automate our reports and tell stories with our data. And the first thing we'll do is understanding why Data Studio matters. What are the use cases, how other companies are using Data Studio to create reports, to automate their data tasks, and also to present their data to convince an audience. Once we understand this, we'll go to 10 steps to create reports. The first step is, okay, if I want to talk about data visualization, I need to bring the data from somewhere. So I connect the data. Once we understand how we bring data, how we import data to Google Data Studio, the next step is understanding how we ask questions to our data so we can create charts, so we can create reports. And once we understand how we ask questions to Data Studio or to any business intelligence tool, the next step is creating our first charts. We'll understand how to create heat maps, time series, pie charts, anything, because on Data Studio, all they work pretty much the same. Once we create our first visualizations, it is time to make our dashboards interactive by adding buttons, controls, drop-downs, or any elements that lets users play with the data so they can have more context and clean their data. We will make our dashboards interactive. Once we make our dashboards interactive, the next step is creating formulas. So you can think about calculating averages, any mathematical formula, just like you do with Google Sheet, that you use many formulas, we can do it on Data Studio, and it is quite simple and automatic. The next step seems like complex. When I think of case statements or regular expressions, people get scared, but it is quite simple and yet quite powerful. You will understand how to create queries, how to visualize your data that is not numeric, but it is represented with strings. I'll explain it later. It seems complex, but once you understand it, you will be one step ahead of any professional, especially in data analysis. Once we have our data prepared, it is time to understand the possibilities of business intelligence. A great feature with Data Studio and other business intelligence tools is blending data. I can combine, like, for instance, my Facebook ads and my Google Ads data so I can know automatically or my total return on ad spent. Finally, once we have reports, once we have data, once we have this amount of formulas, the next step is making our reports look good for our audience so people want to visualize these charts. That's why this is important. We want to present this to an audience and we want to tell a story. That's why Data Studio offers a range of features that make our data looks great and also quite fast. Once we have our data, our dashboards, our data blended, our formulas, the last step is understanding how I can share my reports with an audience, with my customers or stakeholders. It is time to get started with Data Studio, and we will do it by showing you use cases. I will show you how other companies use Google Data Studio to automate the reports and to find answers. And the first example is this SEO report. Most of people talk about SEO, but measuring it is sometimes hard, and especially for customers. If you want to present a report to a customer, most people take screenshots and people don't understand SEO. With this kind of dashboards, you can present a data that a customer can understand and, for instance, know, okay, I am growing my visibility or I am getting more traffic from search engines. Another use case, as I said before, we can combine automatically our ad spend from Facebook and Google Ads so I can know how much in total I am spending on advertising, or in total how many conversions I am getting from both channels. This is another quite interesting use case. I can visualize my funnel from my CRM data, and you may be wondering, how do I visualize or how do I bring my CRM data to Data Studio? We will answer that, but just to give you a quick answer, this is with Google Sheets. If you have data on Google Sheet, you can visualize any data if you have it on Google Sheet. Another example is a funnel. Everyone in marketing talks about building funnels or being a funnel hacker and these kind of things, but no one visualizes them. We will learn how you can visualize your marketing funnels on Data Studio. Another great example is e-commerce. If you want to know your best performing products, your best performing audiences, if you want to know how much you are selling, you can know it right away, and also people who don't know Google Analytics. I can get this data from Google Analytics, but most people who are not technical don't even understand how to get it. We can create a dashboard that anyone in my company can understand. Another great use case is YouTube. If I have a YouTube channel, I can know, okay, how many people are watching my videos, how much time they are spending on my videos. If they like it, if they comment it, I can know it in a glance in the same view. If I want to report my Instagram data, most people report on Instagram with the native application, but there is a problem. You can visualize your reports because you have the Instagram account, but if you want to share it with someone else, you can't. That's why bringing your Instagram data from Data Studio, it is such a good deal. Another example is tracking my Facebook ads most important KPIs. So for instance, in this chart, I am noticing, okay, my CTR looks quite well. It is above my target, but my cost per click is quite high. I understand why my ads are not performing very well, and I can do it with a simple visualization. Another great example that I have seen with banks and large companies is that they compare their current performance against a target, so they can know, okay, this month we are below our target. We have sometimes some additional days to get ahead. And finally, if you want to make some dashboards that make people spend some time, like this dynamic pie chart, when we visualize over time what our best performing products are, this is the kind of data we can visualize on Data Studio. Now, it is time to understand how to connect our data on Data Studio, and let's get started. So the question here is, how do I import or bring data from somewhere, my application, my CRM, my sales software, my whatever, how I do bring that data to Data Studio? And the answer is connectors. A connector is what lets me bring data from somewhere, my sales software, my CRM, Facebook, wherever, to Data Studio automatically. Now, you may be wondering where I can get data from. A good example is Google Data Studio is a Google product and it is free. Also, there are connectors. If I connect Google Analytics, I can do it for free. If I connect Google Ads, my ad spend and all my advertising data, I can do it for free. If I want to track my SEO efforts, I can do it with Google Search Console. Those are free connectors that Google offers, just like YouTube. You can track your YouTube channel for free because Google lets you do so. But what about third parties? What about Facebook? What about MailChimp, LinkedIn, my CRM, and an entire plethora of applications that I would like to visualize their data? That's why partner connectors like Porter bring their data and build these connections. But if you can say, a possible scenario is that partner connectors don't offer a connection for your software, for your sales software, because your team built that software. There is no connection available. How can you bring that data? Data Studio lets you connect your data from your databases like BigQuery, like MySQL, like Postgres, or like a simple Google Sheet. If you have your data in tables, you can visualize it on Google Data Studio. And with this, we can say that on Data Studio, you can visualize any data as soon as it is structured in rows and tables. Now it is time. It is time to create our Google Data Studio account and to create our first dashboards. Once we understand that we can bring data from anywhere, it is time to understand how I ask questions to my data. How can I structure queries or charts? And the way we think of this on Data Studio or on any business intelligence tool is by thinking of dimensions and metrics, and you will understand why. A metric is any numerical value, is anything that I can quantify. 80 visitors, 20 users, 80% bounce rate, 2 minutes average time on a page. Metrics are numbers that I can operate mathematically. On the other hand, dimensions is what let me break down those metrics so I can have context, so I can visualize my traffic users by device, or I want to visualize them by country, or by user type, or by product. So once we understand dimensions as the breakdowns of my metrics, I can start asking questions. What are my best performing products? That's my question. How do I answer it? Okay, my best performing product is the dimension, is the way I want to break down my data. And how I define performance, I can do it by sales volume, or tickets, or average ticket, or profit. Those are 4 kinds of metrics I can track. So I can visualize profit by product, and I can have a list where I sort my best performing products. That's the way I answer a question with data through dimensional metrics. But let's see a different example. If I show you this table, I want to ask what is my traffic, and it is breakdown by device, so I can know in total I have 720 visitors, but most of them are on mobile. So I have context because the dimension, which is devices, lets me visualize. So if I show you this chart, this time series, what is the metric and the dimension? In this case, the metric is users. I am visualizing users over time. So the dimension is date. I am breaking down my traffic by date. Another example is this map. I am visualizing sessions, my website traffic, and I am breaking it down by geography, by country. Let's see this example. And this is how you see it. Okay, for this map, I need a dimension, a metric, I have sessions, I have countries. If I show you this pie chart, why do you think we have a metric or a dimension? Well, it is. Okay, I am breaking down my data by medium, by traffic medium, so I know that most of my traffic is coming from organic, from SEO. And in this case, I am not displaying the metric, but I know that this percentage represents what is the most important acquisition channel for my website. That's the question, and the answer is with metrics and dimensions, with sessions and with medium. Once you understand how to ask questions to your data, once you understand metrics, dimensions, data types, and all these things, it is time to create our Google Data Studio account, and it is time to create our first reports. So I will see you on Google Data Studio. It is time to go to Google Data Studio, so I will go right away to Google. I will type Google Data Studio and I will go to the first option. In my case, I have already signed in to Data Studio. In your case, if it is your first time, you may create an account. Once you create an account, you will see this interface where we will find our reports, our data sources, and everything we need to connect and visualize our data. It is totally fine if you don't want to watch all this video. That's why we wrote a blog post that follows the same steps we do in this video tutorial, and we are following and we are sharing this guide with you in the description of the video. Okay, once back on Google Data Studio, it is time to connect our data. I have two options. I can create a report from zero, or I can go to create to this button and connect a data source. In this case, I will suggest you to create a new report. So let's go to blank report. The first thing to create our first report is connecting our data. And in this case, I am on the Google Data Studio library. In this case, I am visualizing the Google connectors, which remember are free. So I can connect my Google Analytics account, my Google Ads, Google Sheets, and other Google products. But also, if I want to connect to third parties or partner connectors, remember that we can type, for instance, for Porter. And with Porter, we offer you a set like Facebook Insights, which is organic efforts on Facebook, or Instagram, or Facebook ads. Remember that if Google doesn't offer a connection you want, or a partner doesn't offer it either, you can connect your data with a database like BigQuery, like a CSV file, like MySQL, or like a Google Sheet. Actually, in this exercise, we'll connect to Google Sheets, but first, we will connect Google Analytics. Google Analytics is maybe the most complete connector on Google Data Studio, as it offers hundreds of fields and metrics we can visualize. I can do it with my website, with my Google Analytics account, but if you don't have one, you can do it with a sample account. So in this case, I will do it with a sample account, so everyone watching this tutorial can do it even though they don't have a Google Analytics account. So instead of going to the Connect to Data tab, I will go to my data sources. In this tab, I will see all the data sources I have already connected before. In this case, I want to type sample. And when I type sample, Google Data Studio will offer me some example datasets that I can use to connect and to play with Data Studio. In this case, I will look for Google Analytics data, but you can connect sample data from Google Ads, from Search Console, and from other Google products. In this case, I will encourage you to do this exercise with the sample Google Analytics data. And then I will click on Add. And this is all. We have connected our website data to Google Data Studio. You already know that connecting Google Analytics data is quite simple. It takes a matter of a few clicks. But what about my data? What about connecting Google Sheets? I will show you how it's done. So I will go to my Google Sheets account and I will choose a sheet I want to connect. In this case, I will use this one, the CRM template. The good news is that you don't need to worry about having a Google Sheet prepared. If you want, you can use this template that we will share with you on our guide. In this case, every row corresponds to a specific contact. So I have the contact name, the contact email, the phone number, the city, the company name. I know their status, if we won this customer, if we lost it, if the process is open yet, the stage of this customer, and also the value of this customer. So we know that, for instance, this first customer from Denver made us $1,000. That's the date I want. And I also have a date at what time we created this deal. So with this in mind, we will go to Data Studio. I will go back to Google Data Studio, and you may be wondering, okay, where I connect my data. I will go to Resource, Manage Added Data Source, and you will see that we have already our connected account, which is the sample Google Analytics data. I will go to connect a new data source by going to Add a Data Source. Once I connect Google Sheets to Google Data Studio will bring all the documents associated to my Gmail or to my account. So in this case, I will search the document I want, and it is here, the CRM template. Once I connect the CRM template, Data Studio will ask for a worksheet. What is a worksheet? I will go to the sheet, and I will find that I have 3 tabs: Deals, this one, and Field Settings. In this case, the data is on Deals. So I'll go back to Data Studio, and I will choose Deals. And these options, I will set them as default. Just to help you understand what is this about, I will help you. In this case, this is asking me if I want to use the first row as the header. I will go here, and the first row of this sheet is the data I want to visualize, is the name of the label or the field I want to visualize. So I have city, I have company name, or otherwise. By default, this is correct, but if your data happens to be in another row, like it starts in the 3rd or the 5th row, I recommend you to change the range. I will always suggest you to have the header of your data in the first row. Once we have these options, I will go to Add, and our Google Sheet will be connected to Data Studio. Okay, we have made some progress already. We have created our Data Studio account, and we have connected our Google Analytics and Google Sheets data. It is time to explain Data Studio what data we want to visualize, and I will do it right now. We have connected our Google Sheet, but how we know that it is connected correctly? We will see how Google Data Studio understands the data we have just connected. So let me show you how it works. I will go to the CRM template sheet that we have connected, and now I will go to Edit. And here it will show me the fields that it understands or collects from the sheet. Let's see if this makes sense. So it is getting some dimensions like value, city, company name, contact email, but where did this come from? Well, if I go here, I will notice that these fields are assigned by the headers. This type of text or this type of data is showed here. Let's see if it makes sense. If I go to value, which represents the sale opportunity of each contact, I will see that it is effectively a number. But even though it is a number, a more correct expression of this will be a currency. So I will go to this drop down, I will go to currency, and I will say, okay, a number is okay, but I would prefer if it is expressed in US dollars. So this way we are explaining Data Studio what kind of data we are bringing. A city is a string of text. If I go to city, I will see that it is a normal text, but I want to express to Data Studio, okay, this is a text, but it is also a geographical data. So on Data Studio, I will say that city is not text by geographical data, and then I will say it is a city. This way we are explaining Data Studio. Company name can remain as a text, contact email is a text too, contact name it is, well, they created an opportunity last modified are both date formats. If I go here to the sheet, I will notice that they have the same format, day, month, and year, and automatically Google Data Studio interprets this data correctly. So the date is correctly set up by default. And if I go to owner, to phone number and product, they are also strings of text. You may be wondering, okay, but phone number is a number. Yes, but this number is not something that you will operate mathematically. So it is better if it is expressed as text. This way we have explained Data Studio what kind of data we are visualizing. I will show you some other things. If I go to text, you can see all the kind of data that you can bring. So numeric, I can bring numbers, percentage, durations. If I go to date, I can break down my data by years, by months, by day of week, by week of year, and whatever. If I go to Boolean, the expression is yes or not, or true or false. And in geography, I can visualize my data by country, by region, by zip code. I can even track latitude and longitude to know the exact position of a specific metric. And finally, URL. We can display, based on the URL on a Google Sheet, we can display an image or a clickable URL. If I display a URL in a table on Data Studio, I can click it and I can go to a different link. I just wanted to quickly show you what kind of data we can get and we can visualize on Data Studio and any reporting tool. Once we finish here, we have prepared our data and it is time to visualize it. Once we are seeing the types of data, I want to browse some of the options and setups I have here in the data source. For instance, here I can change the number of the data source. I don't want it to be called CRM template deals. I could change it to something else. In this case, it will remain the same. Let's see some setups. If I go to the credentials, this will ask me, okay, what kind of permissions or credentials I need for this report, viewer credentials or owner credential. A future explanation is explained on the guide. I can also set up the data freshness. I want to update my data every 15 minutes, every hour. Of course, most of us want the data as fresh as possible, but in some cases, companies need to pay more for this freshness. So for some companies, it is better if they set it for 4 hours or 12 hours. I will cancel this and I will show you other things. In this option of add a field is when eventually we'll create our formulas, and in parameters we can eventually create our own data for our data set. By now I want to keep it this way. I will click on done and we are ready to create our first charts. Now you know how to prepare your data. We have connected Google Sheets and Google Analytics. I will suggest you to keep with Google Analytics, as most of examples I will do will be with this connector. So in this case, I will close this window and I will create our first charts. By default, this will create a table with Google Analytics data, but I will eliminate it. It is time to visualize data in Google Data Studio, and I encourage you to think in a simple way. Data visualization, business intelligence, and all this related stuff is about answering questions. So we start with a question and we can answer it with visualizations. What examples we can find about this? For instance, if we want to know what is the best performing device for our ads, in this case it is clear that most of our conversions are happening on desktop. That's an answer from a question. Another question could be, what is our traffic performance? How much traffic we are getting over time? And we are seeing that we have a certain amount of traffic thanks to this time series. Or what about to know what are our best performing ads? In this case, we are visualizing a table with the Facebook ads we are doing, and we are visualizing metrics like post engagements, like likes, shares, and many more. This table helps us understand which ads are more effective. Another common question when we run Facebook ads is identifying the best hour. What is the best time to run Facebook ads? Well, a heat map lets us identify peak hours, the best hours of days and days of week when we are getting the most conversions. And there are many more examples, but first, let's understand the most common visualizations. The most simple one is a simple scorecard, simply displaying a metric that shows, for instance, the number of sessions or traffic we are getting. Another example is over time, seeing the performance of a specific metric. In this case, we are visualizing traffic by date over time. Another good example is visualizing a time series but with breakdowns. In this case, we are seeing over time our traffic but breaking it down into devices to know a pattern. Most of our traffic is consistently, in the vast majority, from desktop. Another good example is tables are the most common way to visualize data. In this case, we are visualizing 2 dimensions and 2 metrics. We are visualizing the page, which is the URL of a web page, and the page title, along with 2 metrics, the number of sessions per page and the average time on page for each one of those URLs. This is a way to display data to tell many stories. That's why tables are so useful and practical. They tell more stories than most of the charts. Also, we can note the distribution of our data. An example is visualizing our audience broken down by age groups to identify that most of our traffic are young people. But if I also use other demographic dimensions like combining age and gender, we can identify a pattern. Finally, we can see other examples to know, for instance, what is our best performing device. As we have said before, for this case, it is desktop. And finally, another way to break down our data is by geographical dimensions. So I could display my audience and breaking it down by city, country, or wherever. In this case, the data is telling us that most of our traffic comes from the US. Now that we better understand how to ask questions to data, now that we better understand the difference between dimensions and metrics, now that we know some types of visualizations just like pie charts, bar charts, time series, and so on, it is time to create them on Google Data Studio. So we will go back to our blank report, and to create a chart, I can go to Add a Chart. In this case, I would like to start with a scorecard. So I will click here and I will drag and drop it right here. In this case, the metric I would like to visualize is my website traffic. So instead of new users, which is the default metric, I would like to display sessions. So I am already visualizing that I have this number of sessions. I will Ctrl+C and Ctrl+V and I will display another metric. In this case, I would like to display bounce rate. And it works the same. When I create a chart or a specific visualization, I will see in the right side a set of parameters to set up my visualization. In this case, I have a scorecard. It is okay. The data source, remember, we are using the Google Analytics sample account for this exercise, and the metric, I want to change it. I don't want sessions. I would like to have bounce rate. This is because the Google Analytics account offers this kind of metric. Facebook ads, for instance, will offer me cost per click or CTR and so on. It depends on the data source. Okay, I have already created scorecards. I will create now a time series. So I will go to Add a Chart. I have two options actually, here or here in Insert. In Insert, I can go to Time Series and I will drag and drop it here. Now, let's change some parameters. By default, the metric is okay for me, it is sessions, but the dimension is date. This works for me, but time series let me have other time dimensions. I could say, okay, I don't want date, I want day of week. And then I can visualize my data by day of week, so I can visualize quickly that most of my traffic is happening on weekdays. But let's say I also want to visualize my data by month. So there is a dimension that is called month of year that lets me break down my traffic by months, telling me that most of our traffic has been happening in November. I will go back and I will choose date, because to me it is more practical to visualize it that way. Perfect, we already know how to create a time series. Let's create some distribution charts. So we can create a pie chart and a bar chart, and let's find out the difference between them. So I will go to Add a Chart and I will display a pie chart right here. I would like to display my data to visualize it by device. So the dimension, I don't want it to be date. I would like to be device category. I am seeing that most of our traffic is happening from desktop. This is great. I would like to create a bar chart to display my audience data. So I will go to Add a Chart. In this case, I would like to use a combined bar chart because I want to use two dimensions, age groups and gender. Okay, by default the dimensions are date and device category, but the first dimension I want it to be age. Perfect, I am visualizing my data and the most common age group. Now I want to break down this data not by device but by gender. And here is an important difference between pie charts and bar charts. I can sort my bar charts and I would like to display in order of age. Here I will show you the most important difference between bar charts and pie charts. With bar charts I can sort my data. I wouldn't like to sort it by sessions. I would like to sort it by age groups. And I want to make it ascending. With both bar charts and pie charts I can visualize the distribution of my data. The difference is with bar charts I can visualize it with an order. In this case, age groups have an order from younger people to older people. It is time to make our dashboards more powerful by being interactive, by adding more context, more data and styling. So let's get started with controls and filters. Now, it is time to use filters and controls on Google Data Studio so our dashboards can be interactive, and I will show you why it matters. The first thing is that we can clean our data, and I will give you this example. Let's suppose that your business only operates in the US, but as you do SEO, you can rank in other countries like Canada, Mexico, or the European Union. Yet, this traffic is irrelevant for your website. That's why in our reports we could exclude all these countries to only have the one we need, which is the US. Another use case of filters and controls on Data Studio is to add context to your data. Let's think about website speed. Generally, when you use things like Pingdom, like WebDev, like Google Speed Insights, they will give you an overall score. The problem is that your website speed varies a lot. Over time, by web page, by country, the website speed changes by browser, and many more factors. So it would be great if we can have a dashboard that lets us break down our speed data by page, by browser, by device, and so on, and we can do it with filters and controls. Now, what can we do on Data Studio specifically? A good example is a date range control. With this widget, you can display a specific time for every visualization on your dashboards. For instance, if you want to visualize this year's data, this week's data, or even today. Another good example can be a comparison. Based on this date, I can compare against the last period, against the last week, or even the last year. Another way to filter our data is by using search boxes. Let's say I would like to only visualize data that comes from URLs that contain the word YouTube, and that's exactly the exercise we will do after this explanation. Another good example will be dropdowns. Let's say, okay, I want to visualize my traffic data, but only from these specific locations and from these specific devices. We can do it with a dropdown list with Data Studio. Also, we can turn our visualizations into filters. In this case, we can create a pie chart that breaks down user types by new users or recurring visitors. And if I click one value, let's say new users, it will change all the visualizations to only show data from new users. And a final example is that we can use filters that end users cannot affect. These are internal filters that only work for the visualizations we want. Once on Data Studio, we visualize our data in a default date range, but I can change it. So I will go to Insert, then I will go to Date Range Control, and I will drop it here. Then I will choose a different date range. So I will click on this drop-down, and instead of automatic, I will click here in this corner, and then I can choose a specific period. So I can choose last quarter, or this year, or this month to date. In this case, I would like to visualize this week that starts on Monday, or this month to date. And then I will click on apply, but first I want to check to include today's data. Okay, now we're visualizing this month's data, but let's add some context with date comparisons. So I will click on sessions to this scorecard, and I want to compare against last period. So I will go down, then go to comparison date range, and instead of none, I will click on previous period and apply. So according to this chart, we are getting 15% more traffic in the first days of December than in the first 7 days of November. It is time to create a control, so I will go to add a control, and I can choose between input box or advanced filter. They work pretty much the same. In this case, I want to go with advanced filter. Now, by default, this is telling me, okay, I will choose the data from the dimension page, and this is how it works. I will go to view, and I will create a query. I want to know the pages that exactly match this specific string. So I want the pages that are exactly YouTube. And great, this filters my data to only show URLs that are exactly YouTube. And as you can see, it is impossible because a URL has more text. So instead of equals, I would like to know contains. I want to filter the data to show only the data from pages whose URL contains YouTube. And this is a good example of search boxes. Then I will go to edit, and I will create a dropdown. For this, I will go back to add a control. Then I will choose dropdown list, and I will place it right here. I wouldn't like to break down my data by date. In this case, I would like to visualize by gender. I would like to filter my data to only showing traffic coming from female. So I will go to gender, And here you have, this dashboard only shows me data from women. Now it is time to turn our visualizations into filters, and that's how it works. I will go to edit, and I want to go with this bar chart. Then I will select this pie chart, and I will go down, and I will check on apply filter, and you will see how it works. Let's go to the view mode, and if I click on desktop, you will see that all our visualizations are filtering traffic from desktop. The final example of filters are internal filters. I will go to edit, and then I will click on sessions. I want to change this one. In this case, I want to add an internal filter, so I will go down and I will click on add a filter. I would like to create a filter that only shows me traffic from Google. So in this case, I want to go with source is Google. So the filter works like this. I want to include traffic, so I want to include a source that is or is equal to Google, and save. And this will automatically filter the data to only visualize traffic coming from Google. If I go to the view mode, you can see that I can use these controls that change all the visualizations, but this filter will remain and it will work always for this visualization, and the end user cannot modify it. As you can see, filters and controls on Google Data Studio let you clean your data, add more context, and create interactive dashboards. Let's go to the next step. It is time to create custom formulas, but why would you want it? Because Google Analytics or Facebook ads already offer you need, or they don't. They don't. I will show you an example, and I want to ask you, how do you measure your conversion rate? It turns out that Google Analytics offers a conversion rate metric, and I want to ask you this, how do you measure conversion rate? Because Google Analytics offers a metric that is conversion rate, but it is correctly calculated? Let's think of this. If you're an e-commerce, chances are that someone can buy on your e-commerce in a session. And the next session is also potential that this person wants to buy again, like a week later or a month later. With B2B and with the startups, it is kind of different, because chances are that people will only convert once. Even if you have a subscription model, in B2B, chances are that businesses will only convert once, from trials, from leads to customers. Google Analytics by default measures conversion rate by conversions versus sessions. What about if we do it for B2B with conversions versus users? Let's create that formula. Once on our Data Studio report, I will see that it is crowded, so I will create a new page. I will click on Add a Page, and we will start from blank. And for this new report, I want to go to Insert, and I want to insert a scorecard. For this scorecard, I want to measure users. Now I want to visualize conversions, so I will Ctrl+C and Ctrl+V, and I will look for, on the Google Analytics connector, a metric that is called goal completions. So I will go to metric and will type goal completions. Our new conversion rate will divide this by this, so let's do it. I will Ctrl+C and Ctrl+V and create a custom formula. To create a custom formula, you will click on metric, and instead of choosing a metric, you will create a new field. This new field, I will call it new conversion rate. And the formula, like just using Google Sheets, will be goal completions divided by users, and apply. And great, this calculates the conversion rate, but I want to express it as a percentage. So I will go to type, and instead of number, I want to go with percent, and apply. And here we have a new conversion rate that we are calculating. If I go to Ctrl+C and Ctrl+V, I can turn this scorecard into a time series, so I will make it bigger. Custom formulas in Google Data Studio are as powerful as using Google Sheets, so you can leverage dozens, if not hundreds, of functions to create your own metrics. Now, let's create our dimensions with regular expressions and case statements. Okay, before you leave this video, because this seems complex, because case statements look like programming and super advanced mathematics, no, it is not. It is quite simple, and I will show it with a use case. If I want to ask you which channels perform better between organic and paid channels, what will you say? Does Google Analytics offer me a breakdown to visualize them? The answer is no, they don't. When you go to Medium or to Source, the options are, for instance, organic, social, they are CPM, CPC, but they don't group it between organic and paid, so we can do it. Let's create a dimension that lets us break down our acquisition channels between organic and paid on Google Data Studio. I already created this table and I already created this dimension, and you may be wondering how I did it. The first thing is that I will remove this channel type, which is a dimension I just created. But before that, I will show you the formula. I will copy it and then I will save it for later and I will remove it. So in this case, I want to create a table that displays the medium and new users, but instead of new users, I would like to display conversions. I want to go again with goal completions. I am visualizing conversions by medium and I have none, which is not measured, not set, CPC, referral, organic, affiliate, CPM. What about if we group them? We can group these mediums by paid or organic by saying this. I want to say that CPC and CPM are paid channels and affiliate, organic, referral, none and not set are organic. Let's create it. So I will go to add a dimension and I will create a new field. And our new field will be called, and this new dimension will be called channel type. How do I say Google Data Studio to group these mediums into paid and organic? It is quite simple and I will paste the formula that I already made. So let's explain this exercise. I want to group mediums by organic and paid, so I need conditions. The condition says, if medium is CPC or CPM, then it is paid. If not, it is organic, and I want to express it. When I want to start a condition on Google Data Studio or any SQL query, this is SQL by the way, we will start with a case statement. So always, when you do conditionals, start with case. After we use case, we will set the condition. When medium, which is the value, the dimension I want to use to calculate the new formula, then what is the rule I want to set? This is a function that expresses this or this or this. It replaces the or. So if medium is CPC or CPM or more values separated by commas, then it is paid. If this is not the case, else organic. And let's calculate it. And let's see if it works. Okay, none is organic, perfect, because it is not CPC or CPM, not set organic. CPC is paid because it is affected by this rule. Referral organic, organic, of course. Affiliate organic and CPM is paid. It works well. What I can do now is that I can remove the original dimension and we have a new way to analyze our data. We can see that most of our conversions happen on organic channels. I understand that case statements look complex in the beginning, but once you understand them, because they are pretty simple actually, if you want to know more about case statements, like use cases, like formulas that you can copy and paste, I encourage you to go to Porter Metrics and visit our blog, our tutorials, our templates. In a few times you understand that it is so easy that anyone can learn it. And the good news is that you will look as the smartest person in the room, because most of people are afraid of SQL. Let's go to the next step, which is regular expressions, which is the most advanced thing on Data Studio. I say most advanced, but it is actually pretty simple too. So let's go to REGEX. Let's talk about regular expressions or REGEX, and I understand if you want to leave the video right away because you will say this is complex, this is for programmers and we can do it. No, you can. You are better than that. And the good news is that this is not as hard as it seems, because I know there are special characters like things that nobody understands if you don't program, but once you understand a little bit of this, you will notice that this is simple and that you can steal formulas from our blogs and documentation. I don't do that, of course, I do it all the time. I copy and paste from documentation most of the times, and you can do it as well. I will explain a little bit more about regex or regular expressions. Remember, a regular expressions is the way we explain a computer a specific query. If I wanted to ask a computer, okay, please from this list, give me all the strings that are emails. Or also, please give me all the words that start with A and with capital letters. How do you ask that to a computer? The way you ask it is with regular expressions, and I will show you how it works on Data Studio right now. Okay, let's create our first regular expressions, and I will start with this example. I have a table that breaks down my data, my sessions data, by page URL. I would like to know this. I would like to group pages that contain the word YouTube and the ones that contain the word Android and the ones that contain the word Google, so I can know which topics or which products in my store have more traffic. To this exercise, I will create a new dimension that is called topic. Just like case statements, I will start with a case. And then I start with a condition, so I will go and I will type when. And what is the rule I want to do? I want to say, okay, if the word Google or YouTube or Waze or Android are included, please type the word branded or something like that. So this is the rule I want to create. If the page URL contains YouTube, I want to tag it as YouTube. If it contains Waze, I will tag it as Waze, and so on with Android and Google. How do I tell this to a computer? I will use a function that is called REGEX. As you can see, I have three functions working with regular expressions on Data Studio. I can extract data that matches a specific pattern, I can replace it, or I can simply look for a specific match. In this case, I will go with this one, which is the most common one, which is regex match. So to mention a rule, I need to follow this structure. The rule in this case, I will tell you how the regex work. I will use a regex that tells Data Studio to search in any part of the string the word YouTube. So I will use this. This might seem confusing. What these symbols mean? This is the most common and most permissive regular expressions. When I do this, in the closing and the beginning of the expression I want to search, I mean, okay, I want you to look for YouTube in the beginning or in the end of the string. That's everything that we are mentioning here. And I want to do the same with Google and with Waze and with Android. So this rule means that I want you to look for YouTube in the beginning or in the end of the string. Wherever you can find it, please search for YouTube. Okay, if I don't accomplish this rule, then I will use else and I want to use other. And I will end the clause. Let's see if it works. And it seems to work. Home doesn't contain YouTube, so it is other. This one contains YouTube somewhere. It is YouTube. It is great. I will make it a little bit bigger. Perfect, but there are more brands I would like to mention as well. I also want to mention Google. So I will copy and paste this function and I will replace the values YouTube for Waze, for Android and for Google. As you can see, this regular expression seems to work. If the page URL contains the word YouTube, I tag it with YouTube, and if it contains Google, I tag it as Google. Now I can remove the page dimension, and this way we can break down our website traffic by topics. As you can see, understanding regular expressions is not that difficult, and actually 90% of the times you will use quite simple regular expressions. If you want to advance more on this topic, I encourage you to learn regular expressions in other channels, especially if you want to learn SQL. Many people ask, Juan, I want to learn Advanced Google Data Studio. There is no such a thing as Advanced Google Data Studio. There is SQL and regular expressions. Let's continue with this tutorial by blending our data sources. Let's talk about blending data sources, and to me this is one of the features that will make you transition from basic marketing reporting tools to actual business intelligence solutions like Tableau, Data Studio or Power BI. And I can show you why with this question. What is your total ad spend? To answer this question, you need multiple data sources. You may advertise on LinkedIn ads, on Google ads, on Facebook ads, on Twitter and many more channels, and I want to combine their data to know actually how much I am spending and how many conversions I am getting. I will show you how it's done, and it is quite simple. Okay, for this exercise I want to combine Google Ads and Facebook Ads data, so I will go to Resource and then I will go to Manage Added Data Sources. It turns out that we have connected a Google Sheet and a Google Analytics data. We could combine them as well, but for this exercise I will bring Google Ads data, and we can do it with our sample accounts. So I will go to Add a Data Source, then I will go to My Data Sources and I will type Google Ads. And I will choose the sample account of Google Ads. Now I want to bring Facebook Ads data. In this case, I will use the Porter connector. So I will go to Data Source and then I will type Porter. And I will search the Facebook Ads and Instagram Ads connector by Porter metrics. I want to say two things here. First, if you want to connect your Facebook Ads data, remember that we have a Facebook Ads connector for Data Studio. And second, if you don't have Facebook Ads data, don't you worry, because the logic and the structure works the same for any database. So for this case, I want to connect my Facebook Ad account and I will choose it. I want to choose this Facebook Ad account I will set a conversion window. If I don't use conversion windows, I will choose the recommended option, and I will also suggest a reporting time, which is the recommended option, and I will click to add this data source. Let's blend data sources on Google Data Studio. For this exercise, I am combining Facebook Ads data and Google Ads data. I am bringing Facebook Ads data from the Porter Metrics Facebook Ads connector, and we are bringing Google Ads data from the sample account. I want to quickly explain you the structure of these tables. In both cases, we are bringing the same data. For Facebook Ads, we bring dates with a dimension that is called date. And for Google Ads, the dimension that brings dates is called day. While their name is different, their values are the same. This case is similar with the ad spend data metric. For this case, Facebook Ads, for instance, the metric that represents ad spend on Facebook Ads is called amount spent. On Google Ads, it is called cost. To blending these data sources, all I need to do is selecting these tables and doing a right click and then choose blend data. And as you can see, in a matter of seconds, we have created a table with Facebook data and Google Ads data. Let's check it out. We were kind of lucky that this table worked well because, as I mentioned, we set date, which is correct, but amount spent is a metric, so I will move it over to the correct place. Okay, once we have this table, we will see why this is correct and why it works. The first thing that I will do is I will arrange these tables separately. Now I will explain you why this data blending worked. The first thing is that both data sources have a dimension in common. That's why I can tie data. For instance, I can combine data from this date and also data from the similar date. Once we have our table, I can create a custom formula. I can know the total ad spent from both data sources. So I will go to add a metric, I will create a new field, and it will be called total ad spent. And the formula will be amount spent plus cost. And our new column will answer the question, what is the total ad spent from both Facebook and Google? As you can see, blending data in Google Data Studio is quite easy and quite powerful, yet I understand that you may have other questions like how to manage null values, or how many data sources can I combine, or how this structure works behind the database. We will explain this with greater detail in other specific tutorials about blending data. Separate tutorials, I will share with you some links of other tutorials to explain in greater detail how data blending works. By now, in the next section, we will cover how to customize our report so we can change colors, logos, elements, and more. I'll see you in the next section. Many people ask me if Google Data Studio can be white label, or it can be mobile friendly, or if you can add logos, colors, and other brand elements, and the answer is yes, of course, and I will show you how to do it right now. Let's add some style or personality to this standard Google Data Studio report. The first thing I want to show you is that I added a new control. For Google data sources, just like Google Analytics, Search Console, and YouTube, I can set a dropdown that lets me display different Google Ads accounts. For Google products, I can have a dropdown that lets me select a different account without changing the data source. I will show you how it works. If I go to the view mode and I choose this control, you will see that I can display all the Google Analytics accounts that are associated with my email. Now I will go back to the Data Studio report to show you how to change the styles. Now it is time to customize our report. The first thing that I want to show you is that if I click somewhere in the report where there is no visualization, I can choose the theme and layout of our report. By default, I have this option, but I could change to another theme. So I am switching to the Edge theme, or I would like to choose the Constellation theme. And as you can see, it is super easy to change the theme of our report. Now I will show you a trick to bring the colors of our brand. So in this case, I will say that I love the colors of Stripe, so I would like to steal them. For this, I will take a screenshot. Now I will go back to our Data Studio report and I will click on Extract Theme from Image. Then I will select the screenshot. As you can see, Google Data Studio will grab some of the colors of the screenshot and will give me some suggestions. For this example, I want to grab this one. And here you have. Now you can see how easy it is to bring our brand colors. Now I will show you how to change the styling of your visualizations. I will start with the time series. If I click on any of our charts, I will see the Style tab. Here I can change everything I want. For the time series, I have different setups. For instance, instead of visualizing lines, I could visualize bars. And instead of this color, I could choose a different one, like this one. And now I would like to remove these lines, so I will go down and I will go to the grid option and I will remove it. Instead of gray, I would like it to be transparent. Perfect, now I will show you a special feature of time series. I can find reference line and I will show you how they work. If I click on adding a reference line, I could set a value, let's say for instance of 2000, and I will say that this is my target. This way I can quickly visualize my actual traffic performance versus a target. Reference lines are particular for time series, bar charts, and area charts. Now I will show you a special feature of tables. If I go to Style, I will find conditional formatting. In this case, I will add a new rule. And I will say that if bounce rate is over 60% for my pages, I want to flag it as red. So for this format rule, I will set that if bounce rate is greater than 60%, then the entire row should be red. And perfect, it works. It highlights the pages whose bounce rate is over 60%. I will show you another way to customize your reports by adding elements. So I will go to Insert, and in this case I would like to add a rectangle. And here I will place it right here. Now what I will do is that I will do a right click and then I will change the order and I want to send it back. Now I can add an image, so I will go to Insert, then I will choose Image and I will place it right here. Here I can choose any image from my computer, so I will go to Select File and I will choose the portal logo. And here you have, for this case my image background is white, but I can set it to be transparent. Great, now you know how to add colors on Data Studio automatically by picking an image, you know how to add images to your reports, you know how to add elements, and you know how to customize your charts, like for instance with tables. Okay, I want to show you one last trick. What about making our Google Data Studio reports mobile friendly? I will show you how it's done. Okay, I will click here again in an empty space of our canvas, and instead of theme, I will go to the Layout tab. In this case, I will show you something important. I will create a new page. I would like to keep this header static, so I will select it all, and I will do a right click, and then I will choose to make it report level. If I go to the second page, I should see the same header. Great, this is how the end user will see the report. Now they can change the pages, so I will go to this drop down, and I can choose the page 1 again. Yet, I don't think this is the best way to display your pages because most of people who are not familiar with Data Studio will find these options. And then I will go back to Layout and I will choose that the navigation will be left. And here you have, now we can have a navigation where users can quickly find and can toggle between pages. I want to show you one last trick. What about if you could change the sizes and the parameters of each of your pages in your reports? Here is how it's done. I will go back to our report and I will say that the width of this page will be again this number. Yet I would like to have a mobile friendly version, so I will go back to the second page and I will make it mobile. If I change the canvas size here, it would affect all the pages. How can I fix that? I will go to Page, then I will go to Current Page Settings and I will go to Style. And for this page only, I will make it 600. And here you have, if I go to the view mode, you can see that both pages have different sizes. This one is for mobile, for instance, and this one is for desktop. We have already learned how to customize our reports, how to add colors, how to add logos, how to change the sizes of our canvas. It is time to share our reports with the stakeholders, customers, and our team. See you in the next section. This is the last part of our Google Data Studio tutorial. Once you have learned how to create charts, how to create reports, how to bring data, how to customize the styling, it is time to share your results and your work with other people, with your team, with your customers. And you can see that Google Data Studio has many options to do it. Let's find them. Great, once our report is finished, I will show you the options to share this report with other people. The first thing is that I will go to this drop down and I will choose one of the options. The first and most common one for Google products is inviting other people with Gmail accounts. Here I can choose other people of my team, like these ones, and I can change the permission. So instead of a view mode, I can choose that they can also edit this report, and I will send them an invitation. Another option, if I want to make this report public, is that I will go back to share here or here, and I will go back to invite people, and instead of adding people, I will manage access. Instead of only specific people can access this report, I can change it. I want that anyone on the internet can find and view this report, and I will save it. With this link, anyone can access this report and can play with it, but the permission that they will have is that they only can view the report, they cannot modify it. Let's see how it looks like. So I will go to an incognito view mode, and I will paste the link. And here is how anyone could access and view this report. This is the first option to share our reports. Another option is I will close this tab, I will go down to this drop down, and I can schedule the email delivery. So I can send this report to anyone I want at the time I need. In this case, I want to send this to my email. In this case, I want to send this to my email and to my colleague email. And I want to send it every day at 8 a.m. and I will schedule the email. And I just need to click on schedule. If you are wondering how a Google Data Studio report looks like on an email, here it is. First, you will see a snapshot of your report. You will also find a PDF version and a click and a link to access the live report. Hey, I am super happy you made it to the end of the video. Maybe you didn't watch the video entirely, and that's okay, but if you do, you will know everything you need to know about Data Studio from a basic level to an advanced level. I want to invite you to take some next steps, like using our Google Data Studio connectors or finding more tutorials. I want to invite you to take some next steps, like trying out our Google Data Studio connectors or watching more tutorials, reading our blog, sending me money, or whatever helps you towards your Google Data Studio skills. I hope we will meet again. I will see you in the next tutorial.